So today I'm standing here as a man who was formed in the womb of a praying woman, who, like Hannah, believed God for a child and gave him back to God. She modeled a godly life while creating an environment for God to transform my life, and he did. She taught me to know the voice of God and to trust the voice of God. In the navigational terms, she was my compass. A compass doesn't tell you where to go, it just confirms the direction in which you are heading. Mom was my compass. On November the 19th, 1995, I was a freshman at the University of Texas at Austin, and that night while worshiping in my dorm room, God called me to preach. And I knew the challenge of fulfilling the call after having seen my father and my brother accept their call, so I didn't want to do it hastily. I needed confirmation. The next morning, my mother called me, and without saying hello or how are you, she simply said, God called you to preach last night. She was my compass, confirming that I was going in the right direction. On June the 30th, 1999, her 50th birthday, after having dinner with April at a local burger joint, we drove across the street to use a payphone. Y'all remember those? And I wanted to wish my mother a happy birthday. And so while on the phone, I had to go to the restroom, so I just handed the phone over to April. And I said, talk to my mama, I got to go. She had never spoken with my mother, never met my mother, never knew my mother. And I came back out of the restroom. I picked up the phone, and my mom said, yep. So she said, yep. She was affirming God's direction for my future with the woman I would eventually marry. She was my compass. She wasn't telling me which way to go. She was just confirming I was headed in the right direction. In navigational terms, she was my compass, but she was also my anchor. She kept me grounded when life tried to sway me. An anchor doesn't keep you from experiencing storms and waves, but it keeps you from drifting away. She was my anchor. In May of 2008, when I first started dealing with depression, she didn't judge me or rebuke me. She prayed for me. There were days when I couldn't get out of the bed, and she prayed. There were weeks when I could not go to work, and she prayed. Sometimes on the phone, she would pray me from the bed to the shower. And she called me back in 10 minutes and prayed me from the shower to my closet. And she called me back in 10 minutes and prayed me from my closet to my car. Then she would call me back and pray me from my car to the office. And I would be sitting in the parking lot, can't go in. And she would pray me into the office. The storms and waves of depression were beating on my soul, but she was my anchor. She wouldn't let me drift away. On March the 7th, 2011, after trying for 3 years to get pregnant, April and I experienced a miscarriage. And I called my mama from the car on one of those sound systems where everybody in the car could hear it. And with tears in my eyes and a lump in my throat, I said, Mama, we lost the baby. And she reminded me that God was a healer, that God was a restorer, that God was a redeemer. I was born to my mother after a miscarriage, and his purpose would prevail. Well, nearly 3 years later, on February the 21st, my daughter Anaya was born. Amen. And my mom was sitting in the waiting room waiting to receive the gift of God to us. The storms and waves of infertility were beating on our family, but she was my anchor. She wouldn't let me drift away. So today, my brother, my father, and I will honor her request to preach her homegoing celebration as she ultimately pointed us to God, who was our true compass, and to God, who will be our true anchor. So that's my intro. Now I'm going to preach. All right.